When Mark saw a noon standing alone on a dark deserted road, he was skeptical about giving her a ride because the road had a bad reputation. But Mark decided to give the stranger a ride anyway. When the trip ended, the noon expressed her gratitude in a way Mark had not expected. You wouldn't believe how she thanked him. Mark became a truck driver out of necessity. He grew up in a family where he lacked parental love and care. His father constantly beat him, and his mother never found the courage to stand up for him. Mark was in high school when he decided he couldn't take it anymore and ran away from home. While hitchhiking across the country, Mark met an old truck driver who immediately sensed that he was in trouble. When asked what the problem was, Mark opened up and shared his story. Touched by the young man's story, the man decided to help, so he brought Mark to his home, where he raised him as his own. When Mark turned 22, his adoptive father advised him to find a more stable job. Before this, he helped the old man with various errands. On the recommendation of his adoptive father, Mark got his first job as a truck driver and began his career as a truck driver. A year later, Mark married the beautiful Cindy, and she became pregnant a few months after the wedding. The couple didn't realize they would have 4 children until it was almost too late. This led to health complications that left Cindy unable to work, so she became a stay-at-home mom and helped Mark in every way she could. In due time, Cindy gave birth to 4 healthy children, 3 boys and a girl. With the arrival of children, Mark, who did not want to be irresponsible like his father, increased the number of shifts at work. His determination to take care of his family led him to continue to look for additional ways to earn money. Soon, together with a friend, he got a job transporting food, where he was paid more than usual. His goal was to use the money he would receive from his job to buy his own truck so that he would not have to give 40% of his earnings to the renter. Moreover, with the additional income he would be able to meet all the needs of his family. Sounds like a good plan, right? Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. In an effort to increase their earnings and transport more goods, Mark and his friend decided to reduce the time they spent sleeping and relaxing. This turned out to be beneficial from a financial point of view, since it made it possible to receive payment for every hour spent behind the wheel. They also didn't have to spend money on overnight stays in hotels. But one night something tragic happened. That night, while Mark was driving and heading to his next delivery location, they were involved in a terrible accident. Unfortunately, Mark dozed off for a few seconds and only woke up when another truck crashed into them. Mark instantly lost consciousness from the blow, but his friend did not survive. The recovery process was long and difficult, resulting in Mark losing all his savings and earnings. His family, which had previously lived in abundance, found itself in poverty. Mark was a tenacious man, so it didn't take him long to get back to work. During his first trip after the accident, something unexpected happened. Mark was driving alone and needed somewhere to stop for the night before he got too exhausted. Unable to afford a hotel, he decided to park on the side of the road and spend the night there. To get to the next rest stop, he had to drive along a dark and deserted road. Just as he was about to turn back onto the highway, he noticed a noon standing alone on the side of the road. The noon extended her hand, asking for a ride. Mark thought about leaving it right there on the road. He had heard several stories of truck drivers being robbed on the road and did not want to be one of them. The last money he had was the delivery money, and it was intended for his family. He was about to leave when he noticed the exhausted and frightened expression on the nun's face. This made him stop and reconsider his decision. Lowering the window, he said, "Only as far as the nearest hut." The woman nodded her head and climbed into the truck. When Mark saw that she was shaking, he gave her a blanket. The woman wrapped herself in a spacious blanket and almost immediately fell asleep. While she slept, Mark wondered why she was on this stretch of road and why she was heading towards the hut. The shack was a strip club, a favorite spot for many truck drivers because it was right on the highway and only 3 kilometers from Mark's vacation spot. It was not a suitable place, especially at such a late hour. But Mark kept his thoughts to himself. When they reached the hut, he woke up the noon. But instead of getting out of the car, she turned to face him. "I want to ask you for a big favor. I just need to pick up something and then I need a ride to the next town," the noon said. Mark found her request suspicious and had a desire to refuse her and continue on his way. But he was not the type to refuse helpless people. "Okay, but you have to do it quickly," he replied, The Noon breathed a sigh of relief. A few minutes later she left the club, but not alone. There was another woman with her who appeared to be intoxicated. The women were followed by several men. Mark sensed danger, so he immediately jumped out of his truck and moved towards them, but the bandits surrounded him and the women. "Leave the girl alone and we won't hurt you," said one of the bandits, but the Noon said nothing and simply hugged the same woman tightly. Then Mark took the initiative into his own hands. He was forced to pay them with all his earnings. After that, the bandits left them alone. Mark took the women away from the hut and didn't stop until they were far away. The Noon showed him the way until they arrived at a huge rehabilitation center. An elderly man was waiting for them at the mansion. Mark picked up the young woman and carried her to the entrance of the mansion. After they safely handed the woman over to the old man, Mark tried to leave, but the Noon stopped him. "I want to thank you for everything you did for me tonight. There is no way I could have saved this lost soul without your help," she said before placing a small card in his hand. Mark was taken by surprise when the Noon told him, "This is my lawyer's number. Call him as soon as you get home. He'll give you the keys to the new truck if you need it. Please accept this gift." She later said that after her death, her father left her all his property. Even though she entered a monastery, she decided to use her wealth and influencers to help women successfully undergo rehabilitation courses. The woman she took from the club led a hard life on the streets. So the Noon decided to change the situation and take her to a rehabilitation center. The Noon said that this would not have been possible without his help. Mark thanked her profusely, but returned the card with the lawyer's number, saying that he did everything selflessly, and walked back to his truck. He had just started the engine when the Noon ran up to him, holding something in her hands. It was his jacket. He took his jacket and left. It was only when he was almost home that he reached into his jacket pocket to take out the pills he had been prescribed at the hospital. But instead of a bottle of pills, Mark felt something hard. It was a large wad of cash and a card. The card read, "The world needs more men like you." There was more than enough money there to feed the family until the next trip. Dear viewers, if you like this video, then like and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye.